Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on setting aside a default. Um, so this is the perfect video to follow up on my last video, which was a service of process is not a game of tag. Um, if it does happen that you genuinely have not been served and a default judgment or some kind of action was taken against you without you being aware of it because you legitimately were not notified of what was going on, or if you can win on a technicality, go ahead and do it. I mean, you can win on a technicality when it comes to the rules of service of process because all of the same rules of statutory construction apply. Anyway, I'm not going to get into those little details. I just want to let people know that there is a way to set aside a default. There is a way to be reheard on a matter that you didn't show up at because you legitimately did not know. You legitimately weren't served and you had no clue that you had to, go to court. It's called, in Nevada anyway, it's called a motion to set aside. I think the full name of it is motion to set aside default or default judgment. But the point is, it's a motion to set aside. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to take the court's order or judgment and set it aside on the basis of not having been served. Just like any other motion that you file, the ordinary process is going to trigger. You file a motion, your opponent files an opposition, you file a reply, and then if depending on what county you're in, you may have to file a request for submission. If you want to know anything about what I just said, please make sure you watch the videos on motions, oppositions to motions, and replies to oppositions. Otherwise, you're not going to understand any of that mumbo jumbo. Once you go and watch those videos, you'll totally get what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's how you do it. It's a very short video. I have not had to do this before myself. I may have had to do it when I worked at the collection agencies when I was in college. I probably did. I know I'd seen them filed quite often. Probably maybe 1 in 30 people would complain that they hadn't been served, and they'd come to court and file a motion to set aside the default. And I don't even think we would oppose it. I can't remember a single time that we would oppose it. I would usually just say, just file a non-opposition and have the court set the trial date and all that. Let's just not waste our time with this bickering over service and just go straight into court. Because when they win, they don't win their case. All they win is the right to have their opinion heard. So yeah, that's what you're basically asking the court. You're asking the court to set aside your default because you actually want to participate. And had you known that you had a case open, you would have participated. That is actually an important part of the motion. You do have to mention that you want it set aside because you actually have a defense and you actually want to come to court. You can't say I want to set aside this default because I wasn't served, even though I don't care if I lose and I have nothing to defend myself and I'm just not even going to come anyway. You actually have to have a point behind setting aside the court's default. It's a very formal process when it comes to default judgments. I imagine it's the exact same thing when it comes to something like maybe a post-judgment hearing that you missed in your child custody case. I imagine it's the exact same mechanism, exact same motion, exact same legal analysis, but just to be sure, you may want to do some research on that and look into it. If anyone else has anything to add, especially if you're in a different state and it's a little bit weird or different there, feel free to post in the comments below. But I imagine this is something that's common throughout the United States. People sometimes don't get served and they have a right to, tell the judge, hey, hold on a second. Please set that order aside. I'm ready to come to court now that I know I had a court date. So with that, I'll go ahead and end this video. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post in the comments below.